Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Ingarani me Piripini te whakapapa mai. Ko Leicester me Bristol te whenua tupu, ko Tamaki Makaurau te kāinga, he Industry Research Liaison o New Zealand Food Safety Science and Research Centre, ko Kyla Archer toku ingoa, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you all for joining us for September's NZFSRC Food Science Seminar Spotlight webinar. That's easy to say. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Richard Maniton and Clary Shellhover, who are the COO and 2D barcode lead, respectively, for GS1 New Zealand. They'll be talking to us about the use of digital technologies and data-driven approaches to support the shift of food safety practices using the case study of GS1's QR codes and product recall New Zealand service. So if you have any questions, I will be hosting a Q&A at the end of Richard and Clary's presentation. So please put your questions into the Q&A function and also include whether you're industry, science or government, etc., so that Richard and Clary can tailor their questions or tailor their response to you. So I'll pass it over to Richard and Clary. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyla, and good afternoon, everybody. Yes, my name is Richard Maniton, Chief Operating Officer at GS1 New Zealand, and maybe just before I quickly kick off, I maybe just introduce myself and my background. This is my 10th year with GS1 New Zealand, and prior to that, I was 10 years with Woolworths Supermarkets as their GM of Strategy and Compliance, which had food safety reporting within it. And prior to that, nearly 20 years in food manufacturing in the UK, New Zealand, and in Asia. So I've got some direct experience to call on, as well as the standards experience that I'm specifically going to talk about today. So hopefully that's useful. What I really want to talk about, and I will set up the conversation for the second half with Clary around 2D barcodes, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the recall service that GS1 New Zealand operates on behalf of industry in New Zealand, and how the intersection of these two technologies can actually help to drive greater food safety in New Zealand. To do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about how recall came about in New Zealand, how it works, the benefits, and some of the insights that we see from it. And you'll get an appreciation then how 2D barcodes will interface very nicely with this technology. But before I get into that, I just need to talk about GS1 because I shouldn't assume that everybody knows who GS1 is, and apologies for those who know us well. But GS1 is a global standards organizations that help companies to do business around the world, not just domestically. We operate in 118 countries, and those member organizations in those countries look after about 150 countries in total. So we have responsibilities, for example, for the Pacific Islands or a number of the Pacific Island nations. There are more than 2 million companies globally in 25 industries that are part of GS1. And all stakeholders are at the same global table, as we like to talk about it, when we talk about establishing and rolling out global standards to help people transact their business. GS1 and its standards are not-for-profit neutral standards. So these are open source standards. There's no proprietary firewall or payway gateway to the use of our standards. We're very user-driven, and we're governed, in fact, by our users. And the New Zealand board is, in fact, a representation of our members in New Zealand. We are global and local, and we have a global board that oversees our global activities based out of Brussels. Essentially, we are here to help New Zealand businesses go faster, and we operate principally in the food and grocery sector, food and drink. We also operate extensively in healthcare and also in the agricultural and the hardware sector in New Zealand. And fundamentally, we are about standards that enable trusted data. And to do that, there's really three buckets of activity that drive our work program. The first is identifying stuff. So that might be a product, it might be a location, it might be a company, it might be a logistics unit. We have a global standard to do that in a way that is unique globally, so that a product from New Zealand is never confused with a product from somewhere else in the world. We also have technologies and standards that capture those items that we've identified. And clearly we use barcodes, and that's what most people know us for, is the people that sit behind the barcode. But we also have RFID technology. And Clary is going to talk a little bit more after my chat around the developments in barcode technology, which is quite substantial. And the last bucket is data, standards around the sharing of data, and standards that help to enhance processes of data sharing between companies, whether that is product master data, whether that is digital asset management, or whether that is in fact a product recall service and the process of product recall, which I'm going to talk about now. So product recall service that we call Product Recall New Zealand is in fact, at its simplest, it's a glorified process that's hosted on the web. It talks to all stakeholders in a recall scenario, including and most importantly, the regulator. And it maintains compliance through not only the process of executing a recall appropriately and to the requirements of the law, but also undertakes to ensure that people that have registered for the service have mock recalls undertaken every year to meet the requirements of the law as well. This came about because prior to this web-enabled service, recalls were a very manual process. There were literally phone calls, emails, and as required, site visits to understand exactly what was going on. There was a clear lack of visibility to all the people that were involved in the recall as to what had come from suppliers into what channel, what retailers had in their network of affected products. And quite importantly, a recall is usually an evolving situation. You can start out being one product or a couple of products, but by the end of a working day or a working week, may actually embrace many more products as people understand the nature of the problem. Being able to manage those changes to all of the stakeholders is key to ensuring a successful execution. And the work that we did in New Zealand in developing the service, we took significant learnings from North America. Now, I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. So all of this really came about with a seminal event that happened in Canada in 2008, where there was a very significant listeriosis breakout. You'll know it as the Maple Leaf Foods event, and which was attributed to the loss of 23 lives. And following that event, a piece of research was commissioned to understand what's actually happening in a recall situation. And fundamentally, three questions were asked of manufacturers and retailers who were handling a recall. And that is, what was the average time in days it took for your organization to sense there was a need for a recall and to act on it? And if we look here at the health and safety dimension of this diagram here, you can see that it took on average about 18 days for a manufacturer to know they had a brewing problem. So that might be products being returned to a retailer and the retailer communicating that to the manufacturer. It might be product samples seen in the quality control samples at the point of manufacture showing some defects. Or it might be, in fact, consumers writing directly into the manufacturer. But on average, it took 18 days to realize there was a problem. And then the supplementary question is, what was the average time in days it took for the organization to obtain the recalled products from the marketplace? And in this instance, it took 42 days to get the product under control in the marketplace so that no one was going to be injured by it. So clearly there's an elapsed time of 24 days between the 18 and the 24. And the last question was, and what percentage of those products were you able to capture that had been in the market, and that number was as low as 43% on average. So there was over half the product couldn't be accounted for. Clearly, that was not a great scenario. And the Canadian industry, working with GS1 Canada, developed an incident reporting service that is to help speed up the process of people sensing there's a problem, the 18-day problem, and developed a recall service, the 42-day problem, to combat that. We drew on those learnings substantially, and in fact, the Canadians helped us to develop the New Zealand service. So industry came together in New Zealand to look at a better alternative. They needed to address the implementation lag. That was perceived as the biggest problem in New Zealand's context because we have a significantly more structured or concentrated retail trade in New Zealand than is the case in Canada. So manufacturers and retailers got together, facilitated by ourselves, and in many occasions we act as Switzerland, the neutral body that can get natural competitors in a room without contravening competitive law requirements, because we're not talking about prices, we're not talking about competition related stuff, we're talking about operational improvements to help the safety of all New Zealanders. And we have a phrase in GS1 which is about developing solutions with industry for industry. And this was a classic case of it. But the key point why GS1 was in the room is because our standards are at the core of this. The barcode, or the GTIN, as it's more appropriately described, the global trade item number, that's actually the number under the lines, is the important thing. That's the unique thing globally. That is the only universally recognized product identifier by all participants in the supply chain. And so that became the key point to leverage the service around. And all participants were keen on developing a modern standards-based system run by the community for the inclusion of everybody and including the regulator in real time. And I talked about the barcode and its omnipresence, and it is. It doesn't matter whether it's at the supplier or the distribution or at the store or in fact at the customer's home. That identifier is there and can be used and is leveraged. And Clary will talk about how we can leverage that even greater in the context of customers and products in their home with the use of future 2D technology. So how does the communication work? Just give you a quick synopsis of how it works. So a food manufacturer might start sensing they have a problem and will start a conversation with the Ministry for Primary Industry as a regulator here and agree the nature of response that's required to what they are seeing, whether that's a withdrawal, a recall, or a recall at the consumer level. And that will then dictate what data is required by the recipient retailers or the recipient customers that this product has been sent to. And that food manufacturer will then initiate a series of messaging going to all the people that that product has been sent to. Now, clearly the food manufacturer is key here because they ultimately know where the product has gone, who they've sold it to. And they will send a series of emails to all of their recipients at the same time. And those recipients, so in this case, retailer A, is gone to their headquarters. And retailer A has their own internal recall system, which this service talks to. It populates their system, and they then go and talk to their network of stores independently in their system. But get the feedback from their system to play it back to the food manufacturer. Retailer B actually uses PRNZ to talk to their stores. So in this case, there's a central person at retailer B who has overseen the information, has agreed for it to be distributed to the stores, and it goes individually to all of the stores that range that product. And retailer C, known as a non-subscribed recipient, might be a small corner shop who does not have a registration with the service, but we still send them the message to say, "Oi, if you've got this product, we believe you've got this product in your store, please withdraw it from sale." Because they're a non-subscribed recipient, we only get a message saying they've read it and they've seen it. We do not get a closed loop on what stock is in their system and what stock has been set aside. In the case of retailer B, where we're messaging right the way through to their stores, we also use text messages to actually text the store manager to say, you have a recall in your inbox which you need to action now. Because we don't assume a store manager is sitting at his desk idly doing emails. They're actually on the floor selling stuff. So we use all the technology available to alert them to the problem as quickly as possible. And here's an example of what a receiver would receive. It has all the information the receiver needs, because the moment I say this product has been sold to retailer A, the system says these are the information that retailer A needs. And so the problems that we used to have of incomplete information being sent to participants has gone away because everybody's all the information they need. And that receiver then reports back and acknowledges that they've got the recall message or the withdrawal message, and gives an indication of the units that they have in their system. And through the process, ultimately the initiator, or the food manufacturer in this case, can then view a summary report that says that in this case there was 5,450 odd items of this particular peaches product, and it was in those locations as identified there, not ranged, but in this case in the two DCs. And so we've captured what product is affected, where it is, and those stores, those businesses have set aside that product to a quarantine area where it cannot be sold. So that's been pretty successful in moving what was an archaic, slow, troublesome process into something that's quick and can be literally executed within hours of the recall being sent to all participants. And as a result of that, we have over 2,600 manufacturers on the service today. And here's a graph showing the sort of events that we get through the last, what is this now? This is 6 years worth of data here. And you can see that withdrawals in the orange bar outweigh recalls. Just to make sure people are clear on this, a withdrawal is usually a preventative measure, like the product is not to the standard I would like it to be. It might be a taste problem or a visual problem, in which case I'll withdraw it from the supply chain and remove it from sale. A recall is a more serious event where clearly something is very wrong or wrong with the product and it should not be consumed. And that is initiated right the way through to the consumer messaging, which is done at the store level. What Clary will talk about is an opportunity for us to move beyond that and actually enable consumers to actually engage in a recall themselves by scanning a product in their home. So this year, for the 6 months of the start of this year, we've already had 151 products removed, and that compares with 289 the last year. So as things are going at the moment, we're likely to be recalling and withdrawing more products than last year. And these are the recipient retailers that we have on the scheme. So clearly you can see we've got the bulk of food and drink sellers in New Zealand. And those that are not on the system, if a brand manufacturer says, I sold it to XY store in, let's say, Dargaville, they will still get the message because they're the unsubscribed recipient. And that drives a bit of data which can be useful. And I'm not going to go through this at length, but this is what we've seen over the last 5 years, where you can see undeclared allergens, you can see the type, there, and the most predominant being milk, followed by gluten, followed by soy. Microbiological contamination, listeria, followed by salmonella. Plastic is a foreign matter problem we find often, usually associated with obviously the packaging, and incorrect labeling is all around, usually the tracking code or an allergen labeling error. So really for 50 years, we've used the traditional barcode that you see on the left here, the 13-digit barcode, to drive this service and lots of other benefits for our manufacturers. And in the logistics space, what's called the GS1128 barcode for cartons used in general distribution. But that's all about to change. And so at this point, I'm going to hand over to Clary, and who's going to talk to you about next generation barcodes and what that means, particularly for food safety. So Clary, over to you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Kia ora, everybody, or servus, as we would say in my hometown in Munich. It's really a pleasure to go with you through the new barcode journey with all of you. So as Richard said, we can enhance the solution from a linear barcode to a 2D barcode, and I will guide you through what that means for food safety here. The cool thing is this barcode, the linear one, will not go away. It will stay, but we can enhance and evolve it. Quickly to me, my background is in product identification and international supply chain optimization. So I'm really bringing the physical and the digital world together, not really me as a person, but together with GS1 and the international standards, and you as an industry, we can make that happen to enhance that functionality of digital labeling through a 2D barcode. The cool thing is the future is already now. Time has changed, but the future is now. And it is a team's sport to transition to the new generation of barcodes. And when we go to the next slide, please, Richard, then we see it is a team sport because it has an impact on the whole ecosystem when we introduce and transition to 2D barcodes. The consumer has to be educated which kind of barcode to be scanned and why, and what is his benefit. He can scan the 2D barcode and will find out more about the product. The ingredients, the nutrition, how to use it, how to cook, how to store, how to recycle. And for the retailers, of course, they want to do more sales, how to reorder. So that is a transition and an education and an awareness piece. For the brand owners, they have to change and print this 2D barcode with more information and encoding that when they manufacture their products. And for the retailers, they have to be ready to scan the barcode, the 2D barcode, that it does the beep at the point of sale and is capturing and processing the new data which is in there. But not only these three groups we will be tackling and helping on the journey, it is as well the solution providers, the regulators as well. And of course, the science and the statistic data behind that needs to come on board as well. So as I mentioned, the next slide is the future is now. So that's really, what is really the difference between the linear barcode and the 2D barcode? It is scannable by a native phone and at the point of sale. So that is the key difference here, which is differentiating the GS1 2D barcode compared to the existing marketing or a normal QR code. So the key thing to remember here is this is a barcode which can be scanned at point of sale as well. To give you a little bit background, and it's getting not too technically, don't worry about in your lunch break, it's not too technically, but I think it is important that you have a bit of an understanding of why it is so important and what are the opportunities which we can fulfill with this 2D barcodes. And we spoke a lot now. Now you need to get active. Get your phone out, please, and give it a try. Scan this GS1 QR code, and I give you a bit of time to do that. And with that, we were really demonstrating what kind of information you can link to the product as a brand manufacturer, as a food producer. Remember how to cook, how to store, how to recycle, and how to reorder. That is the consumer engagement piece which we will be enabling with this 2D barcode, but as well the scan at the point of sale. I don't know how many have scanned that one. If not, we see on the next slide where you're ending up with. And that is an example. Don't worry, GS1 is not competing with risotto manufacturers here. We are not that Italian, but you see as an example what can be then as a digital information be provided in an international standard and structured way. So about nutrition, safety, and recipes, and marketing engagement, of course, as well. So important is that is the consumer engagement. Coming back to the food safety and the recall, at the moment, you can't really recall a product and reach your consumer. I will outline in a second how that really works. So first of all, so that consumer. So Richard, you were a bit fast, but that's okay. We are in the retail store now. That's okay. So this QR code can be scanned at the point of sale. And we have demonstrated here what will happen when a product is expired. So best before day is passed. You as a consumer cannot buy that product anymore. It will be a hard stop at point of sale, which is fantastic for food safety. It will help the brand manufacturers, the food manufacturers, that they don't have a bad experience with the consumer. It will help the retailers to really ensure that an expired product can't be sold. More important is when we talk about a recall or a withdrawal, it will be a hard stop as well. And that is sometimes helping really because the staff in the retailer shops are so busy and they have to make sure that all products are withdrawn in a very short time period that the consumer is not having the chance to buy a recalled or withdrawn product. That can be sometimes really challenging. And I mean, you maybe have realized last week we had a big recall, a very big one. So a lot of products has to be recalled. The staff is quite busy with that. So having the hard stop at the point of sale is absolutely fantastic here. Another advantage is really that at the moment, the majority of the retailers are stopping the whole product category. So the whole GTIN number is stopped when there's a recall or withdrawal. They are not reading the text of best before date or the batch number and doing a recall, that targeted recall. So assume we have 100 milk bottles, but only 20 from a specific batch or from a specific date, best before date, are impacted of this recall. What happens these days is all 100 milk bottles are stopped in the store. No one can buy it, and it will be all withdrawn and be quarantined. With having the 2D barcode and the best before date and the batch number embedded in this 2D barcode, we can go to a targeted recall. So that means only the 20 bottles who are really impacted will be withdrawn. The other 80 will be still on the shelf. That will lead the whole ecosystem to a massive food waste reduction. And still, consumers are still happy because you still can buy one of the S item of the milk bottle. So that is a massive, massive impact. So first we have the food safety aspect, but food waste reduction here as well. Okay, so going to the next slide to give you a quick repeat, how to cook, how to store, how to recycle, how to reorder. That is just an example how you really can make use of these 2D barcodes for your consumer engagement. But that's not all. And when we go to the next slide, I think I would like to outline a little bit more. When we have a recall, what does it really mean? So Richard explained the system, how it works up to the retailer. All products which are contaminated, for example, being safe at the retailer. But what are we going to do when a product is already in a household, in a fridge? How do we communicate to this consumer or to this customer? At the moment, we cannot. With a 2D barcode, we can still tell the customer then, scan the barcode and you will immediately find out if the product is impacted, yes or no. These days, every consumer has to bring back a specific item when it's recalled because they cannot find out if it's impacted or not. But when they scan the product, they can find out because that goes to a website then and it will tell them if it's an impacted product, yes or no. So that's really, really important for the food safety here and the consumer engagement to make sure that our consumers and customers are safe. It will have a lot of more advantages, and I will quickly touch on them. It will have an enhanced traceability in the supply chain as well. It will help with first in, first out in the warehouses and in the distribution centers. It will have a very positive impact on sustainability because we can tell how to recycle the packaging of the product. And we get more packaging real estate because the 2D barcode is a bit smaller than the linear one. And for inventory management, it's back. We have more transparency about what is in stock and what is not. Going to the next slide, giving you a bit of, that was now the benefits, but what is really the difference between the linear barcode, the 1D and the 2D barcodes? First of all, the 2D barcodes can carry a lot more information and can be encoded more data, like a best before date or a batch number or a serial number. And very important, the URL link that the consumers can scan it and will be redirected to a website to find all more digital information here. The 2D barcodes are more forgiving. It's always a challenge to print them in the right resolution, in the right quality that the point of sale can scan it. And thinking about Christmas ham, for example, it's not yet the time for Christmas, but almost. Christmas hams, I will show up soon in the stores. They all have to have a flat area when we print a barcode on it. For a 2D barcode, we have up to 30% printing area, which can be around the corner, and the scanner will be still able to scan the information, which is absolutely great advantage. And when the print is not 100%, the algorithm can still decode the content of the 2D barcodes. So we call that error correction. And going to the next slide, you have an idea of what's really encoded into the barcode. And we made an example here. You have, for example, the brand name and the GTIN, which Richard outlined, that will be scanned with the consumer and then will be redirected to a website that he can find the right information. For the point of sale is starting to scan the GTIN number, starting with 01, picking up the price, and checking the batch number and the best before date if it's still valid and not recalled. If so, it will do the hard stop at point of sale. And when it's expired, it will be the hard stop as well, which is very, very helpful here. This is happening now, and I would like to give you 2 quick examples. What's happening in the Netherlands here, a European example. That is a boutique dairy factory, and they are encoding the batch number and the best before date on a bottle. So you as a consumer can scan and get the whole story from which farm the milk is coming and all of this. So the whole traceability pathway is declared on the website, but as well the batch number and the best before date. So for freshness guarantee here. What are we doing in New Zealand? One of our retailers, and that's in this case Woolworths, is rolling out 2D barcodes already. And you might seen them already in store. So this is another version of a 2D barcode. It's a data matrix, which can't be scanned at the consumer right now, but can be scanned at point of sale, but have all the productivity and efficiency and food safety aspects, which I just outlined, embedded and enabled. So we are really busy with helping all the private label suppliers to get on board with the 2D barcodes here and to help them to put the right taxonomy and syntax in that barcode can be read at point of sale. And that will lead, the official figure, by the way, from Woolworths is 40% of food waste reduction, which is really absolutely incredible and amazing. And another international example is Tesco in the UK, rolling out 2D barcodes in parallel with the linear one. So they have dual use because they can't guarantee at the moment that all their stores can scan the new generation of barcodes. That's why they say, okay, they're co-locating at the moment in the transition time, both barcodes, but they still have the advantages of the tracking of the batch and the best before date. Yeah, and then to summarize the benefits on the fresh produce, we talked about food waste reduction. We've spoken about the food waste, the reduction of the food safety risk, the efficient recall management. You really can target the products and improve freshness and traceability. And maybe one last sentence to the freshness and traceability here. When you order online from a retailer, how can the retailer make sure that he is not shipping a product which is expiring tomorrow? At the moment, they can't. But when they pick with a 2D barcode scanning out of the store, they can set the rule that the product has to be at least 3 days before expiry date is achieved. So that's how they can ensure that consumers and shoppers will have the freshness guarantee. So overall, we will have a food safe country. We have an enhanced consumer experience and an increased customer satisfaction here. What I would like to ask you to do is think about it in which area you would like to start with the 2D barcodes. We are here to help. I'm talking more to the food manufacturers in the audience here, and happy to help and guide you through a pilot. We have specific programs for that. We have a lot of information and material which brings you onto the journey because it's happening now. So as soon as possible you can start, the earlier you will get the rewards and the gain of the benefits. So yeah, over to Kyla for any questions and discussions and comments. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. That was really interesting and really helped with my understanding of how it all worked as well. We've got a couple of questions in the Q&A. Again, if you've got any questions for Richard and Clary, please pop them in there and add if you're, food industry, science, government, wherever you're from. So let me just bring up the questions. So we've got one from Mark, who I think is a sort of science adjacent consultant. So a simple one, the talk has been focused on food because obviously we're in the food sector, but does the product recall NZ also cover other safety recalls such as electrical goods?
No, it doesn't today. However, there are a number of discussions happening with sectors around the applicability of this technology to electrical goods, hardware goods, and indeed some medicines as well. So the success that we've seen with this service, in my opinion, but I'm biased, is directly applicable to other sectors. And we would be crazy as a nation not to rinse and repeat elsewhere, in my opinion. Yeah,
great. Thank you. Clary, when you said expired product, are you talking about the use by or the best before expiry coding? So that was from Erin, who's
very good question. So what you can encode into the barcode, it depends on what your retailer and your product is requiring. You can have use by, you can have best before, you can have up to other, I think it was over hundreds different items you can encode into this 2D barcode, depending on your use case and the requirements. So best before and batch and serial number are just examples, and driven by Woolworths, they're requiring that. But you can code anything in what you need for your use case, and we are happy to help you through that. We call them application identifiers, the attributes which are encoded into the barcode.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I guess because there are some companies that sell sort of expired, but like best before has passed, but it's still safe to eat. And then that would kind of, if it was hard encoded into that would make it really hard for them to sell their things.
Yeah, and you can do packed by, packed on, sourced from everything what you can think of, you can encode into that one in a standard structure so that the POS can pick it up.
Okay, great. So we've got another question. It's from Anonymous, so I don't know where they're from, but would you look to have an app for consumers that their scanned products gets logged into and then could send them an alert that something is being recalled?
That's a good one. Should I take that, Richard?
And I might chip in after you. You go.
Yes. So that is not GS1 really the one, but you potentially can look into that as a retailer loyalty program app to add that as a benefit feature, or we can discuss it with the regulators. If they think it's of added value, we can do it as an ecosystem or as an industry together where GS1 can play a role in.
Yeah,
Richard?
that's a good answer. Look, at the end of the day, I think the important message here is none of what you've had described to you today can happen unless there is agreed standards by everybody that's operating in that supply chain. Because then everything is interoperable and people can talk at the same language and understand exactly the messaging and the choreography between all the participants. So we would facilitate that. It would enable any brand owner, whether it's a retailer or a manufacturer, to do anything with their app that could leverage this technology and, yes, provide alerts to consumers if they felt that was appropriate for their business.
Yeah, I think that also covers another question that we'd had here, and I think is already happening, but it was around seeing future potential to send push notifications to consumers regarding a recalled product through people that have purchased it, with linking through to a loyalty card and things like that. And I believe something like that already happens.
Yeah,
So I've had something that's come through
yeah,
from that.
yeah, yeah. It does. It does happen today because let's say it's an individual can of baked beans. We don't know because it's not by batch that that particular can of baked beans was purchased by that person, Richard. But if Richard is part of a loyalty program and they've captured that transaction and your basket, because that's what that information they're seeking to gather, then they can put the two together and say Richard bought the affected item and then message him because they've got that direct relationship with them. That does happen today. What Clary is talking about is just a general message. If you're unsure about the product that's in your pantry today, please scan it. The digital link standard will take them to the brand owner's website, and the brand owner will say, yes, you have or you haven't got the affected product. Please return to store.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Thank you. So I've got another anonymous question here, but do the 2,500 plus subscribed manufacturers to GS1 include producers of dietary supplements as well, or is it just food?
Yes, I believe so. So we have some, it depends on your definition of dietary supplements, but yeah, vitamins and other, I think, yes, I think we do have a couple of those in there that are selling today into the supermarket sector in particular.
Okay, great, thanks. Oh, and just a little addition from Peter from GS1. So just to clarify on what Richard had said in response to Mark's question around the electrical sort of general merchandise items. General merchandise items stocked in supermarkets and outlets like Z Energy are covered by Product Recall NZ with MB as the regulator. So just a little, I don't know if everybody can read the Q&A, so I'm just reading that out. Philippa has asked, is the hard stop able to be applied only to the used by, or is that on any sort of aspect of the 2D barcode?
The hard stop at the point of sale has to be implemented by the retailer that's scanning it at the time. And so that would be applied to the expiry date or the best before date. But also the hard stop is applied if it's a recalled product.
Okay.
And it would,
So it
and
can
it
be
would be
unlawful.
those two attributes that would initiate a hard stop, i.e. preventing the sale to taking place. I don't think there would be any other attribute that would prevent the sale, Clary. Forgive me if I'm wrong.
No,
No.
normally not, no. Reduced price can be something, but it won't be a hard stop. So when you have a price markdown, then the price lookup will happen as well, but not a hard stop.
Thanks. Another anonymous one. Thank you for the informative presentation. Does the 2D barcode system have mechanisms to inform users about embedding updated or corrected information included in a 2D barcode?
So just to be really clear here, when the barcode is encoded and printed on the product, the content can't be changed what that is in the barcode. The only thing about updating and correcting information is the information which is on the website, which you can access through the website link in this QR code. So later, adding data into a barcode, it's not possible. Updating the data where the barcode is leading to on the website, that is your web content, which is easily updatable.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question. Otherwise, please feel free to come back, Erin.
Yeah. Okay. And I've got another industry question. So, is there any intelligence around mandatory labeling information on packaging for retail, e.g., NIP on food being replaced by 2D barcode? Hopefully, that makes more sense to you than it does to me.
I'll try and answer that first of all. The first thing is you may or may not be aware that the government is undertaking a review of labelling of food items in particular. We have clearly been communicating with government about the development of the technology here around what we call a digital label, or what you've just been described today as a 2D barcode. And that does present opportunities to present more information to consumers about products through that URL that's embedded in the new barcode. However, it is probably an absolute certainty that there will be information that still has to be presented on a pack. And that, irrespective of whether it's got a 2D on or not, there will be a mandatory requirement that will be established by government and this review. And indeed, that has to take into account other jurisdictions as well if I'm exporting this product to another country. So it does open the opportunity to have a discussion as to what you would like to present digitally as opposed to physically on the product. But there will always be mandatory data on the product, in my opinion. I should add to this, there's also a couple of cohorts of society who could benefit demonstrably from this technology, and those are people particularly with poor eyesight or are blind. This could help them actually navigate to find the product, or how to prepare the product at home and serve the product, etc. And there are plenty of examples around the world where that is happening.
Great, thank you. I think we've got another one coming. Oh, I think it's just on the clarification of the previous one. Just to clarify how do consumers know there is an update or correction on the product information included in the website? So it's basically if the website gets updated, is there a notification on that, or a way of notifying?
That would be very much with the brand owner on their side. So the brand owner is maintaining that digital experience that's linked to that 2D barcode on the pack. Usually that would be probably a passive situation whereby the consumer is having to find out the current information. But of course, it depends on the relationship. If that brand owner has a one-to-one relationship with its customers via some loyalty program or whatever mechanism, then absolutely they can issue alerts as they wish. It really depends on, do they have that one-to-one relationship?
Cool, thanks. Another question. Is there a way to prioritize the information displayed on the web page or web link when the barcode is scanned? For example, allergens, recall information. You talked about sort of, went on the example that you had, there was the recipes and the nutritional information. Is that down to a sort of a food manufacturer level?
So at the moment, there is no guidance from government or industry, for that matter, around what should precede what on a digital experience. That may well come of the review that I talked about, where they're starting to embrace the concept of digital labels. But no, right now that is with the brand owner to present what they believe to be the most pertinent information. And remember, the most important product information like ingredients and the nip panel, I'd be surprised if that is removed from the pack, but it could happen.
Yeah, we will see. I just had a quick question. So what are the biggest challenges for adoption to the new barcodes?
Larry, you don't want to have a go at that one?
Yes, happy. So as I mentioned before, it is an ecosystem transition, right? So first we have a chicken and egg system here. So I sometimes hear consumers are not scanning. Why should I do all the effort in the marketing and in the transition to a 2D barcode when the consumer is not scanning? And our answer is always like, that's up to the brand owners to make sure that value-added content is available for the consumer. To really, if you change to a 2D barcode for consumer engagement, all the marketing people here in the room know it, you have to provide added value for your consumer and not just sending them to your landing page and nothing happens. So there has to be some interaction and relationship management. That's the first one. Second one is to really help the manufacturers, because what has to happen when we have the best before and the batch and serial number, things like this into the barcode, we go from we call it static barcode, because your linear barcode is being printed on the pack 100,000 times the same barcode. When you have the best before that in the batch, which is dynamic data, you have to print the barcode at the end of your production line onto the package. So the package will be ordered with a white space. You leave the white space there, and then at the end of the production line, you will print every day or every batch a different barcode with a different best before date and a different batch number. That is the biggest challenge and transition which we are facing at the moment in the manufacturing. And on the third one is the retailers. We have to really make sure and engage with all our retailers to be on the same page, to be able to scan the barcode. And that's why it is an international rollout. It's called Sunrise 2027, to make sure that all retailers in the world will be able by hopefully 2027, that is an ambition, to be able to scan 2D barcodes only. At the moment, we still go with linear and 2D barcodes because we can't guarantee that a small dairy can scan the 2D barcode. That's why we have to really co-locate them, still getting the advantage for the retailers who can scan, but making sure that the price at least can be looked up with a linear one for the ones who can't scan 2D barcodes. So that's basically three big challenges in every...
Just more, yeah. Just little ones. And I think that links nicely into I think our final question, and it was also linked to something that I'd thought about as well. And so you mentioned that it would be a different barcode for each batch, and so that gets printed at the end of the production run. And so these would effectively be hard coded into that 2D barcode once it's printed, and so it can't be updated. Compared to the information that gets shown on the owner's website that could be updated, could there be a problem if it's if there's incorrect labeling in that point?
Yeah. Anything that's presented to the consumer, as is prescribed in law in New Zealand, has to be true and correct to the product. So it doesn't matter whether it's actually physically on the product or on a website, it needs to be correct to the product. So the same disciplines that apply to whatever you print on your carton that then holds your product and is sold through a physical store is the same for any digital information that you present about that product that's been linked by that 2D barcode. So yes, there has to be disciplines around making sure that all claims and obligations are correct.
Right. I think that answers the question. And just going back to the things that you said about it being sort of like a brand's responsibility for sort of the customer journey on the website. When you had that Netherlands milk one. I quickly scanned that, and they have a very fun little website, and you can go and look at all of the individual cows that they have and see when she was last milked, and then talk to the farmer. So that's just a really nice example of really cool marketing things that can be done as part of the as well as the obligatory, mandatory, regulatory information that is required on those as well.
Yeah.
So I think that sums up all of our questions. Did you have any closing comments?
No, other than thank you for the opportunity to talk today. We appreciate it, and I do hope that that's been of some use to you all. Probably we generated more questions about this space maybe than what we've answered. So please come and talk to us if you're interested but not quite sure what your first move is. Come and talk to GS1. That's what we're here to do and support you on the journey.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you for your time today, Clary and Richard. It's been really interesting to hear about sort of the practicalities of going through a recall, because being on the research end of things, we're trying to prevent that from happening. But we're all human, and sometimes these things slip through, and so it's good to know that there's a safety net at the end, and technology can be really supportive in this case. So as usual, this has been recorded. Sorry, Carrie.
Oh, no, no. I would say save Kai and save money. One with an F and one with a V.
Yes. Thanks. As usual, this has been recorded and will be available with previous webinars on our website under the events seminars button. So please let us know if there are any other subjects that you'd like to hear about. Our next seminar will be on Tuesday, the 14th of October, with Kai Commitment, who will be talking about food waste reduction and what part food companies can play in this. And this was something that you alluded to earlier as well. So it'd be nice to tie them together. The invites and registration information will be sent out next week. So thank you for joining us today. I wish you a good rest of the week and look forward to seeing you next month. Ka kite anō.
Thank you very much.